John, you facilitate your stand?
Yeah.
I got an objection, and this is just me, but I have an objection to the amount of money Culver Tribe pays to architects. Because right out there, they're building a community center, and it's a duplicate of the one over in Hardtop. You know, I said, did we pay them again? You're darn right we did. $100,000 to get a design you didn't like? Or, you know, why are we continuing, who's your architect?
Wilmer.
Of course, he's getting richer.
Yeah, he's
You know, we
getting,
go to
he's,
Architects West with this and that, and we see time after time after time, the same thing happening. And, you know, somebody's got to stop this. Somebody, you know, with some authority has to say, draw the line and, you know, let the bleeding stop.
Let those non-tribal money, people get their money someplace else.
Well, that's an administrative decision. The council doesn't pick who the contracts are. We don't pick Architects Rex. We don't pick Willie Womer. It's a bidding process, and Francis Somday and his administration are the ones that make the decision. Again, if we get involved as council, then we're gonna get ridiculed by people saying that we're directing things and micromanaging. And so, I mean, you gotta walk a fine line in what position.
So what's his spending authority? His spending authority? is how much?
30,000.
And then who signs?
Probably has to come to the council.
And that's
So who
where
picked
the
Willie
authority
Womer for you
lies.
guys? Who picked Willie Womer for you guys?
I don't,
It wasn't us, I think it was planning that made the,
they put it out on CBC.
yeah, they put it
Oh, they
out.
put it out?
Yes, we didn't have any
You'll
input
see
in
a
that.
lot of
Gotta
bids
love
come
Lana.
up, and the cheapest bid for an architect, a building site. But I'm like, this, the seniors should have been involved, saying, well, we want something like this open and whatnot, and have a guy sitting here drawing with a pencil, you see it on TV all the time. And
Well,
going to somebody, it's like she was saying, that roof, you know, it's a beautiful looking building, you look at a picture, the roofs go this way and that way, you know. And I'm not a goddamn contractor or builder, I don't know, probably leak, probably 10 years down the road, I don't know.
Well, I'm assuming that's why it was written in the contract that they come and make contact with you guys so that you have your input. That's why that's why there's gonna be more than one meeting. Yesterday's meeting isn't the final design.
No,
But that's just something for you to look at, and then we're giving you guys the input on how you want it designed. That's written in the contract. So that,
well, I think what you're saying is that we had our building just built. Whatever, and then put the rooms in it inside. That's what you're saying. It's a beautiful building.
Yeah, no
We've done
question.
long over there.
Well, we've got a list here, go ahead.
I just got a simple question. On your next district meeting, can we invite Brian Nissen, or do you guys do it?
Oh, no, if you guys, anybody that you guys want, we
Well, I would
definitely
like
do.
him to go over.
I have him down, so I'll
We
do
didn't
it.
have to come over here, he never comes over here, so we can voice our concerns again.
What was the question?
Brian Nissen, they want Brian Nissen to come over here to be here at the
As
next
the
meeting.
next district meeting.
What's he gonna do?
An emergency
He's
meeting
running-
next Thursday, have him here.
area on aging.
He's area on aging.
Shit, he's never seen no once.
I want to address your point real quick, because I think there's a number of us that want, because you're right, those architect contracts cost a lot.
Yeah,
If we, and looking long-term, if we develop our planning department that has engineers and architects in it,
The day before.
two of these contracts will pay for their salary easily. And
I did
they'd
it
be
last
working
night
on all
before I
these
had
problems
asked
for
Joe
us. So
Silas
that's,
over a month ago.
something that we keep pushing in community development, but
That's
it's not
because I
getting
thought he was
traction.
gonna
Just
handle
make
it.
a recommendation with her. and she can take it.
And you
Make
didn't,
them
you didn't say anything to
understand,
me,
you
so I
gotta
don't
think
know,
about
and I'm the one who does the agenda.
Well, see, I had no idea, but
I was just wondering,
I
I
asked him
missed the
because I
last
see him somewhere.
mentioned half the money goes to
Chris
I kind of heard the youth center being built here.
We don't know, the youth center is taking care of their own, if they have to get board together, and they have to help them. We suggested they have to have that, not have them, but they have to have a board, they've already got a board, and,
Yep, I
It
think
took 5 kids.
just started. They haven't done anything yet. They just had their first meeting and they're gonna start having more and more meetings. So we need to get that word out too, developing our young leaders, getting them part of this board, and they can help develop something that they wanna see. I think having our community involved in these things, you'll see less vandalism going on in those buildings, as it has more community involvement. They can recognize, hey, I helped build that.
Just, what you were just mentioning, having our own, I think that's an excellent idea. And a little background on the architect that we're forced to use almost constantly is because of Carroll. This is an Indian-owned business, and anytime we've tried to use anyone else, they come in and get them bumped out because of our Carroll regulations. And I think a prime example is one of the casinos. We had 2 bidders on it, and one was, they were native tribe from another area, but they got bumped out because, and all of the council preferred this one, the drawing, the architecture, everything was what we wanted. And because of the Carroll Indian owned, tribally owned. Off the land. So you have that problem, and the only way to solve it is having our very own.
Well, I'm glad you bring up Terrell, Sherry, because that's a stance where we got to be consistent too. We can't pick and choose when we want to enforce Indian preference in Title 10, when we're gonna, when we're not. I've been firm on that. I'm a believer that it has to be fair and consistent all the way around. And if we don't like the way that it's written, then we need to change it. But I'm not going to get politically involved and say, well, at this job we're going to use Indian preference, and this one we're not, and this one we are. We have to be consistent all the way across the board. It's fair to everybody, But the problem that we have is council gets involved in wage tariff fees, and I haven't supported that one time, and so that's a whole nother issue. They've been revising codes. It was put out to public notice. To my understanding, they just passed those, didn't they? Last week, the E&E. And so that was out for public notice, like 30 days, 60 days, 60 days. So people have, it's just like a law. I mean, the law is a law. We have to follow it. If we don't like it, we need to change it.
I beat my drum on Carroll for years. And without it, we're nothing. Carroll gives us a unique right to do. And we had our own construction and whatnot. It applied not only on reservation, it applied off the reservation. Any federal funding, even tribes without Carroll, without election Carroll, tribes without Carroll, there's a clause in each federal funding, why we got Waterville Power Administration, why we got EPA, because they're federal entities, they deal with federal dollars, so therefore they have to hire federal employees, Indian employees. But like Benny said, it's a law. You can't let one person speed through a school zone 50 miles an hour and cite the other one for doing it. It's a law. It has to be equal. And it was to my understanding when you try dealing with the law, there's supposed to be meetings like this. When we passed Terrell, we held meetings under the federal standards of governing ourselves. We had to put meetings together, and we had people to come and voice their input, because when Title 10 was enacted, there was a lot of non-members saying not to enact it at that meetings. It was publicly invited to each district to pass Terrell. To amend the law, I thought it had to be not just put in the paper and write what you wanted, have it be in person again, and see what they're amending the law to. But maybe I'm wrong, but the National Terror Director advised, and that's the way it should have been, instead of writing in the paper and just wanted to share that, because Terrell is, regardless who, what, where you are, you have the right to go to Cornwall as a tribal owned business and bid them jobs. And they have to give you preference, not tribal preference, but Indian preference and bid.
Yes, you give government trucks to part of the government.
It's an important law, and to be educated within the law, because each federal contract, like these road jobs, under the federal contract, they have to hire 10% of that money. If it's a $3 million contract, 10% is a lot. But they only, the prime contractor only has to show where he tried to hire 10%. But it shows the federal government to take that contract. And we're not upholding these companies coming in that aren't following federal law, and we're allowing them to pass through our reservation. And there's been contractors that did, when I worked there, that were taking up the federal contract list for not doing it. Dealing with that. Okay. There's sure good people to argue with, though.
You know, today during tribal government, the tribal government chair, I think John kind of mentioned it, but I didn't really hear any suggestions or much of a response. But we're trying to get suggestions from each of the districts, go back to the tribal government committee, and if there's anything that each of the districts want to be put on the ballot for referendum, it has to come from the district. And so we're asking for input, and I didn't really hear much. And so if you, there we go.
I'd like to have a, well, maybe this isn't a referendum, but I'd like to see a ballot that says the candidates, the position, and then down at the bottom, have it say, no confidence.
Say what? No confidence.
No confidence.
I'll write that down.
I will. I'll write it down.
Add that as a topic to vote for.
Yeah,
I mean, is that a consensus?
instead of writing it down, that's actually a good idea to have that on a
Does
box.
everybody agree with that? I mean, that, it is a suggestion, and it'd be good to hear everybody.
John's
agree.
facilitating.
I had two ideas. One is reservation-wide voting.
Mhm.
I'm sure that was brought up.
That came up.
And my other one that I would like to see is them not limit, individuals have to live on the reservation to run for council. I wish they'd change it to maybe 25 miles within the reservation boundaries. You know, and be enrolled, you know, everything the same, but we shouldn't have to be forced that we have to live on the reservation if we established housing, you know, 20-some years ago.
Yeah.
And if we choose to want to run for council, I'd like to see that brought forward.
Two that were brought up in the committee.
Those are both brought up.
Yep, so that's good.
Oh, where Benny? It was brought up on a committee.
Referendum.
He just said something about it was for like,
The ideas of what you would like to see as a referendum vote.
We're asking for input, and then we're gonna go back to the table probably in the next tribal government committee and forward whatever recommendations that come out of our district.
we sent in just the other day again, a suggestion about the reservation right voting. Did you get it? Is anyone want to discuss it?
We want to bring that forward.
We discussed it.
Change, and it would be so easy to implement that, because they're still able to get their two representatives from, I guess, the district, and then the top two go into the general, which would be reservation. I got another, thing that I highlighted on. Every year I get my ballot in mail to vote for school levy
law.
addresses and whatever. But then when it comes voting time, you have your registered votes, and then you automatically mail out the absentees. Yeah. And they'll be right on their register. That will alleviate all of the ones
It
that
happened.
are taking advantage of our less fortunate people, hauling them down there to get a vote. You know, using the less fortunate. I've never liked that. They used to break my heart when they could use like that and then put them aside. So that was my other suggestion. But that didn't go in with that, draft.
Okay. I think.
Just so everybody knows, I sat on the election committee last year, and I typed up a recommendation just for that. Because every eligible voter, like we have in the public, county, state votes, should have a right to vote. And we as a tribe should pay for that ballot to go to their mailbox. So that we did make a recommendation that happened in elections, but it didn't go anywhere. So
Then that means, then we don't have to put this in there.
I would like to have it where you would have to register anybody 18 and over. All it does is fill out a form, register. We do it at county all the time. And it's, that way there's not that stretch where you have to mail something out and worry about running the post office and make sure that stamp is there. And then you can have your, posts where you, if you think you don't have time to put your ballot in, to be able to come and put it in, rather than bringing it in and somebody sends you to the post office because it doesn't have a stamp on it. So they can mail it from the school to the main building. That's ridiculous. And that was, one thing on that referendum vote, and, I would like that to go to anything that needs to go to the people. We have tried, got shut down with our petitions. And you know, I know they weren't up in the neighborhood. Can you verify that they did get rid of our originals? Okay, so one thing that I did want to say is, you guys violated our right to vote. And you guys violated our confidentiality by pushing that. You already told me yourself that I saw on the chair that you had just gotten back to our board for about that morning. And we were meeting December 20th, I was there. That was the day after December 19th, when I froze my ass out there, and none of you guys came out. You left us old people standing out there, you deserted. So anyway, I went back to the 20th, and I chewed you out.
I want you to know that I was gone on that day, so you don't point
And
fingers.
so anyway, what I was saying
Oy.
is that petition that was passed on from you to Juana, to you, back to Juana, back to you, it should go to the government chair, and, you know, it's confidential. From there, it should go right to get the signatures validated. And by a lot of people don't know what validation is, that's when we validate the voting number to make sure that everything is right. Then it goes to the rest of it, not being passed down like you guys did. You violated our right to vote. You violated our confidentiality.
I wanna see it. You know, I wanna see.
And that's just how we
Reservation of wine bills.
But it
Sure.
just like burnt me down here, really bad.
Reservation.
I wanna agree with the other two and also, being able to get our mail on that. if that's the way we choose to vote.
At their primaries.
And, once you voted, your ballot would come to you every year. Vote, vote, vote. You wouldn't have to send in the absentee card. That is creating all kinds of chaos, because people are saying we're cheating, and people are lying, and, well, these are wide open, it's crazy. Then those can get lost. So many things can happen, but if that ballot comes out just automatically, I love it, that the county, the state, and federal, he's come to my post office box, and he can hold the pen and fill it out. And there's some people that choose to vote at home, that's fine, let them. But those of us that would like to vote that way and make sure that we always get that ballot to vote. And yes, it would be a cost to the tribe, but I think we would get a lot more people voting. And when I was on council, I tried to bring this forward, and it got voted down. So, in the committee. So if it's put out for everyone, maybe more people would take to it. But the other thing I want to caution about, in the past, there has been 2 or 3 or 4 different things put on to be voted on. And you run the risk then of people voting against all of them because they didn't agree with one of them. And it's best if you take one and go year after year, you know. Pick your highest priority, do it this year, next year, do another one. But, then you've got to have consistency with people, so it's hard to do. But I think it's real wise, and, you know, I thank you guys for bringing these, letting, people bring these forward. And this is another thing I would put in this bill, so that, you know, there's a lot of membership out here that would maybe give us a voice if they do. Thank you.
Well, I hate to be the devil's advocate, but, you know, there's rules set for the tribe to follow. We all believe we're sovereign, we're an executive tribe. Who's the secretary of
Interior?
He's the treasurer. See, anytime you mess with the Constitution within any tribe, and that's a constitutional right, it was set in stone, to have 2 districts, council members voted on, every other year, that's stone. That took approximately 7 years to get passed back then. It started in the 30s, and it never got passed until the 40s. But anytime the tribe had, once they adopted that, had tried, they tried this in the 70s. What's the guy's name, the head honcho, that blesses everything? He wasn't invited. He was not invited. And he has to explain to the membership the consequences of changing that constitution. And it's not just the Omak District 1 that ordered this beating or insulin or killer. He's gonna waive the membership as a whole, and he would probably hold, and if, there used to be a book out, Bob Campbell showed me, 1978, and it went to your family, and it went to your family, and it says, what do you think about this? And the Secretary of the Interior took notes on each family member that was old enough to vote to adopt that constitution we have now. That's the same process. The council has the authority to do what this lady says. They can pass it to the election committee. Look, we can do our ballots like Lynn says, and seal them and have them go to the election committee. They have that authority, but to change the Constitution without doing it properly, and the first thing you have to do is have it blessed by the Secretary of the Interior.
Can't we just get rid of her? Him?
And it isn't gonna happen overnight, because he gets it and has to go through Congress, both Congresses of the United States, because we're an executive tribe, and then the president has to sign it. We're looking at 8 years. Every time I hear this, let's change it. We as people just can't pass our own laws without it getting blessed by. Without,
He's still got the floor.
I still,
Not
He
the
still
Ten
has the floor.
Commandments.
I
It
still,
can be written in stone and everything, but it can be changed.
I'm not saying it can't be changed, but there's a process this tribe has to follow to change that process. But
You
one
can
thing
drop
I
the
would
secretary.
like our constituents in Omak district to do, and it really bugs me. If I go out on my own reservation, I'm requested to have a blue card. It states in the codes that this council passed saying, look, if you're with fishing, you need a blue card. If you're gonna enforce that on me and I'm your member, why do I have to pay for the first blue card? Because I know people right now that don't have $5 for a blue card that don't get the same right as me because they don't have a blue card, they can't afford it. But the tribe makes them hold that blue card, but it costs $5.
It's gonna cost more.
And if you're gonna ask for it, you have to have it on you, but you have to pay for it, and I'm blessed enough I can afford it, but there's people, the tribe's making these people hold their blue card, so why can't they give the first one free? If you lose the second one, you pay for it. Just like
They give us our gas card for the first thing. I heard the next one, you pay $5.
Yep.
You know, and I hate to be the devil's advocate, and honest, don't give up the floor, but that's the process. That
Well,
is
lucky I
the
got
true,
$5.
honest process about reservation-like voting. You're probably aware of it, you're aware of it, you're aware of it, and they bring up these things that can never come to blossom within the membership and get your hope up, but it is a long process. And the first one that they have to get a hold of is, look, we have to change our constitution, was the Department of Interior, and they'd have to go to DC for 2 years and argue about it. By that time, he's voted out and got to
Start all over again.
Start all over again. So it just frustrates me that that constitution is solid.
Now I feel hopeless.
Oh,
I'm just-
you're good.
The process, I want to explain the process.
One hot topic I can think of, which I don't know if it takes a vote, but our AT money. How I know there was like a survey done at one point, and I think it's something huge. And you know, what should we do with our kids' AT money? Should we wait till they're 25? Should we expect a high school diploma? Like
Educate them on financial,
educate them, make them take the class.
right? Put them through the nonprofit training. No, I'm just kidding.
They voted.
Yeah.
Don't you think vote?
Yeah. I don't know if that is something that.
She's writing it down.
She's right.
Did ask it also.
Oh, I see some tribes doing it though, and I see some young people making sure they're getting their high school grant.
Some of them they make start at 5th grade.
Our grant that we put in was to amend the little portion of the law over election code. And the Constitution, as we all know it, have holes in it big enough for me to go through. I mean, and it's getting everything messed up. And that has to be
don't see it as being difficult. I don't know why. I mean, I've talked about this since 1980 when I went to work for the tribe. Why can't elections and enrollment work together as far as addresses? What, I just don't understand it. I mean, everybody's address is gonna be right with enrollment. We all know that because of our yearly claims check. You know, and yet we have this, probably the biggest discrepancy in the election last year, with everybody not getting their ballots and everything. I don't, is there something?
It's been going on every year. I mean, my brother, who's no longer here, gets a ballot. I mean, this is embarrassing, but it's because the two programs haven't worked together. This year, they've merged together. So
Awesome.
elections and enrollment are working together. Actually, they took elections and put it under enrollment. So just so you know, that actually, when that was the hope, is that they merged, they used the one software for all of the addresses.
Mandy,
Oh, yeah, let me write this note. I like this.
Only one page.
I'll quit it. Oh, here, my questions are on this page anyway. I took a tribal law jurisdiction class and a tribal gaming at the community college that they have. And I know so many years ago that the tribe helped sponsor through the college some stuff, but I don't want any sponsor or anything. I'm just saying you guys collaborated with the college before, or our tribe has. What I'm hoping to do is I'm hoping that maybe you guys can talk to the college and maybe we could work something out to where during the spring quarter, this next spring quarter that they have, there's only one class, not both classes are this next spring, but where I could possibly go in and record them and then upload them so that you guys are learning the same thing that those people are learning in that class. And I did want, and I talked to a teacher there already, and they said it's possible. But I have to get approval through the college, I have to get approval through the teacher, and the teacher, I believe, is an ORA from us, and so I'm wondering if you guys will help me get that done.
You know, I think John and I both have taught in the class ourselves. So
Yeah, you
there's-
came to the
yeah,
class, you were a special,
exactly.
yep.
But I mean, we need, that actually should be something that should be out there for all of our people, yeah. I mean,
I learned so much. It was awesome.
Yeah, I'd be willing to help out.
Cool.
yeah, I mean, it's a class that, I mean, it really gives you a great understanding of why we're in the situation.
In the
we're at.
book that they hand out, in the book, it goes back to the first case of Watt versus the Confederated Tribes, and it was for a DUI. And I mean, it's just very interesting when you go through the stuff that they teach you in there. And when the ORA is in there, which now is a teacher, before it wasn't. It was just somebody that had worked for the tribe before, and she wasn't even a member. But now it is. And so, like, if you go in there, you ask them any questions, they can answer it. And it's really awesome because there's a lot of issues. And like one meeting a couple months ago, somebody brought up jurisdiction. Good luck, because guess what? It's very confusing. Even after that kind of class, a bunch of us were still confused. So this is something that's absolutely necessary for you to understand your laws, your rights, the trifecta. If you get in trouble, you can end up federally, tribal, and through the state. You can end up with all kinds of different factors, and people don't realize it. So anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Just- Did you know your hand?
I have someone who's wanting to go home. Yes, and we'd like an update on the ethics charge.
Update on the ethics charge. I'll see if I can provide a brief synopsis, because it's went through the process. The first part of it, in the first ethics committee, out of the government committee meeting, turned it over to the police to have them investigate it formally. They came back with the finding that it was not criminal. We then proceeded into the next step within the code of it being an ethics violation, looking at what are the options. Jack Ferguson from Keller, representative, is the one that brought forth the complaint. Went through the entire investigation, the contract, so a police investigator did the entire investigation, interviewed people, provided all the documentation. So the entire committee had opportunity to ask questions, go through it. getting into a lot of the details. There were some things within the process that really raised a lot of questions of timing, motivations, a lot of things. Needless to say, we went through that process, and at the end of the last ethics committee meeting, that we're going to formally vote on in the next special, was to render a punishment of suspension of 2 weeks because of, and I'm not going to speak for Benny because he can speak for himself, looking at those credit card charges, using it for, so there's differences in how many charges there are and what the amounts are, what the accounts are. It's, I think at the end of the day, I feel that the committee did the best they could to come to a sound resolution, but in terms of how that process went through, I think there were some concerns on a lot of people's parts. But as you know, the code it's not very workable, and that's one thing that I'd like to see changed is that code. One of the other suggestions as well that we brought up today, we were talking about removing the ethics committee from the council control, that it's separate. That's one thing that we want to put on the ballot.
Actually, we said it doesn't need to be on a ballot, we can make the decision ourselves, that's not a constitutional reform thing, we can just do that, yeah, so we discussed all options on it.
You're right.
It's totally comparable.
So that's a brief synopsis.
Okay.
Excuse me,
Go ahead.
what's the difference? You said there wasn't criminal and it was ethics. Can you give me your definition of criminal and ethics?
Well, my determination, the committee didn't determine whether it was criminal or not. The police
You
investigator.
accepted the definition.
We accepted
So-
the police in their investigation. That's right.
And so the police said it was criminal.
They said it wasn't.
And so they gave it to you and you determined it was an ethics.
From there, looking at that, the committee as a whole determined that there's still ethics violations that need to be addressed.
So can we clear that up, because ethics is different than criminal, and there was no criminal intent in any of the investigation from going into the accounting office and going through all the process. But the ethic issue is that we have a process as council, and Sherry, you'll remember this, that when we need to have authorization to use the credit card. And if we use the credit card without authorization and going through our committee process, then that is in question. Many of us around that table knew that every one of us in there could have been charged. But nobody brought up complaints about all of us using the credit card, our travel. Sometimes we go somewhere and then we get called back early, so we receive the per diem, we owe the tribe money, so we have to pay it back. So there's all kinds of things. I'm a stickler about pennies and using tribal dollars because it's public dollars. A lot of us are that way. Not everybody is. And what happened in our observation was, yes, Benny came in and said, I used the credit card. It wasn't authorized. I'm guilty. I paid it back. I didn't hide it. I turned in my receipts. So there was all this information that was shared. And next Friday, we have a full council meeting. We had the hearings. Everything's done. We made our recommendation as a council, and it will be coming forward next Thursday on the 21st, or Friday on the 21st. And all 14 of us have to be there. All 14 of us by code have to vote. And I'm sticking strong to my position. I believe that if we were going to do this, we should have done it on all 14 of us. Because that's the, secondly, in the minutes, which will be public now, you will read that I requested the audit, the CBC audit on our whole account. So, it's sad because I believe that, well, this is my own personal, I'll say this out loud, my position is because I actually was secretary of the council a year ago, and we were trying to keep track of all these things and help train people, make sure that they were doing everything right. Because not everybody on council has ever had a budget or ever run a business, or, I mean, so there's things that happen that we just assume that we can use a credit card, or we're going to a tribal meeting, you know, I'm gonna use my credit card to get gas. If you're an employee, you can do that, you get reimbursed, but you don't get reimbursed that way at expense. So there's different policies and rules and regs, and all I want to do is make sure that we don't use one person to expose our problem, that it's an internal problem that we should all deal with, we should all be held accountable, and hopefully that's what happens, that's what comes out. So next Friday, we'll have a recommendation for a CBC audit.
You're supposed to, when you run for council, you're not supposed to have an outside job, right? Any job anywhere else.
I don't think there's a rule on it. I don't think there's a rule on moonlighting. No, there's no rule on
You're not
moonlighting.
supposed to have a job because you're a councilman, right? Now, why are you, when you're in council, why are you allowed to travel here and there to find a job? Like that National Indian Congress or something.
Oh, National Congress of American Indians, Nakai.
Yeah.
You're
Why
talking
did
about
we
Mike
have to
Finley.
pay-
Okay.
Why did we have to pay for Mike Finley to go down and look for their job, to buy his job? Why did we have to do that?
I don't think.
Why did we have to, why did he spend tribal funds?
I don't think it's, I agree that the tribe shouldn't be paying that bill, but I don't think it was for another job. It was to run for a position, the National Congress of American Indians.
Screw the position.
But don't people have to pay for their own
You want
campaign?
an explanation? You can let me finish. The moment of notice that I and Lynn both knew that our tribe was paying the bill for his election to run for that group
Nakai.
was when we were there. And it was actually told to her and me by a tribal councilman from another tribe that told us, do you guys know, I think Lynn asked him, the National Congress of American Indians, do they pay for his election, do they pay for his meetings, do they pay for his travel? He said, no, your tribe does. We had no part in that process of, do we pay for his election or do we not?
No, we never paid for
That
campaigns.
doesn't,
That's
well,
not
that
cheap.
doesn't come before us.
That come out of our tribal funds.
I know, and we have no say on that. We heard about it after the fact. So, you know,
Does he have to?
Ha,
pay
make
back?
them pay it back. There it is.
how can I make our chairman pay anything back?
We can make him pay
He's
it
a
back.
council person from this
We
reservation.
will tell him to
Well,
pay that
You guys
back.
can make him pay it back. We can't.
He actually is in a very high position right now, and, you know, there's some good things that Mike is doing right now on our behalf as a vice chairman of the National Congress of American Indians. Whether we agree or not, that is a place that you want one of your tribal leaders to be at right now at this point in time. We just got done pushing the state of emergency for the Indian
What a choice
healthcare.
in the
We actually
campaigns.
went to Washington DC a week and a half ago and was able to call in senators and congresspeople and our director of IHS to let them know our crisis that we have here. If we didn't have those connections, we wouldn't have been able to get it that quickly. So I want to throw that out there, you know, whether you agree with Mike or not, that's the position he has in it, and there are benefits to that position for us as a tribe.
It just makes me so mad that we had to pay for that. We had to pay for that. He's an instant councilman, okay, but it comes out of general funds. Everybody paid for that. And the money you could have spent on him, you could have made more jobs for our people, all of you.
I never got a chance to vote on whether it was paid for or not.
Benny, did you have something that you were gonna say?
I just wanted to respond to the ethics, and I was hoping Tilly would still be here. To answer Dina's question, as far as the difference between a criminal charge and an ethic charge is lack of intent. I went and met with the detective. I'll go back even a little farther. I'll give you a brief history as fast as I can. Back in July, there was a fuel purchase made to attend either a meeting, groundbreaking, symposium, whatever. Each time I made a fuel purchase, I took that receipt, I gave it to my secretary, followed the process. She forwarded it on to the lead secretary, which then would give it to the county. There was 17 purchases over 6 months. The way I read if you read the credit card policy and you read the reservation travel, it says right on there that for reservation travel, you can't do reimbursements. To me, a reimbursement to me is if I go somewhere and I use my personal credit card, and then when I go back to work, I turn in those receipts and ask for a reimbursement. That was never done one time. So how that is a violation of on-reservation travel, I have no idea. You know, and I'm gonna correct Lynn as far as her saying that I came in and said that I felt that I was guilty. I've never said that one time, not once have I admitted to guilt. They determined from their perspective that I'm guilty. I still don't think I'm guilty. I still don't think I did anything wrong. As far as the fuel purchases themselves, it says right in the credit card policy that you can use these credit cards to reserve rooms, for rent-a-cars, for fuel purchases. So again, I still don't feel like I violated any of the policies. It's not like I was going and making these fuel purchases and trying to hide it from anybody. I was up front from the very beginning. I was turning in everything. Nobody said nothing for 6 months. Okay? So the morning of the actual ethic charge, when I come in, there was speculation and rumor around the reservation of people talking at Tribal Trails that it was actually 2 of our other council that were going to be charged ethically. So the morning that I went in, I was as surprised as anybody at that table when I opened my papers. In that packet, there's a second memo. There's 2 memos in there. I received the first memo. The second memo says that I have 10 days to remedy the situation as far as these fuel purchases. At no time did anybody come and ask me what I was doing, where I was at, were you on delegation, what was you doing? That was never ever brought to my attention, never. And so if somebody else's interpretation that I'm doing something wrong, how do I know what their interpretation is if they never come and tell me? So I was following the policy the way I read the policy. The second memo states in there that I had 10 days to remedy the situation. Okay, I never received the memo. So after the ethics was already filed, I went and talked to the chairman and I says, why, a couple things, why didn't you guys ever come talk to me about this? Why wasn't I ever questioned about it? He says, well, we sent you a memo. I said, I never received a memo. I said, how would you know whether or not I received a memo? Well, that's just the process. We've got to have a paper trail. I said, well, maybe your process that includes you calling me in, you call an ethics committee, executive committee, you call me in and say, hey, Mr. Marchand, here's your memo. Sign this memo. Now you know that I received it, right? Okay, during this process after the ethics, Frances Somday came over and asked my secretary if there was ever a second memo put in my file. She told him directly to his face, there's nothing in his file. So that's my backing and support that I never received a second memo, okay? The memo says pay these fuel purchases back within 10 days, which I never received. On the 8th, so that memo comes from the ethics committee, which is Jack, Ferguson, Sneena, Mike, and Billy. It was signed by 3 of them. It says within 10 days. On the 8th day, ethics charges was filed. So in my opinion, somebody on that ethics committee went against their own recommendation. So where's my due process in this? 1, I did receive the memo. 2, your memo says 10 days. On the 8th day, you filed ethics charges. So, you know, when he says there's concerns about how this process and everybody should have